Welcome back, everyone. Turning to a concerning virus outbreak, an influenza virus called H5N1, commonly known as bird flu, has begun to spread to other animals. Infections have been found on every continent except Australia, and it's been seen not only in birds, but foxes, bears, and cows. But scientists have not found any evidence that the virus has mutated to spread easily among humans. The risk to humans remains low, and the H5N1 virus has been studied for years, meaning vaccines and drugs are available if they would ever be needed. But meanwhile, more immediately, largest egg producer in the United States had to cull almost 2 million chickens, or about 3.5% of its flock, to stem the spread of the virus. Cal-Maine Foods is trying to secure production at its other plants, but this could lead to higher egg prices at your grocery store. Now, from eggs to dairy, consumers will be wanting to know the risk posed by this virus in food. We're joined by Alan Bjerga. Did I get that correct? Bjerga, sorry about that. Executive Vice President of Communications and Industry Relations at the National Milk Producers Federation. Welcome to the program. Anytime you talk about a virus these days, man, it just grabs you by the collar and says, pay attention. Talk about the risk of spillover into humans. They say it's low, but people are going to say, tell us more. We want to know about the concerns when it comes to livestock, especially cows.
Well, of course, people have concerns. Given what we as a world have been through with viruses in recent years, you can understand why consumers would have concern and why this would be a story that people would follow. But I think it is important to note that what we've been seeing in the H5N1 virus in dairy herds has been very isolated, very small numbers. The cows are recovering. There was a case of one human, a dairy worker, who was infected. But again, this was a person who had very close contact with the cows, a lot of interaction. It's not the very first time a human has ever had a diagnosis. And as you said in your intro, mammalian risk is incredibly low. There's certain markers that viruses have that show adaptation. Sequencing has not been showing that adaptation. So, of course, people are going to watch, people are going to be concerned, but I think the main thing that people have to give right now is reassurance to note that the food supply is safe. This is why God and Louis Pasteur gave us pasteurization. Right. Cows are recovering from this illness. In the meantime, they are isolated from their herd and the milk is not entering the supply. And even if any did, there's safeguards in place. People should not be worried about whether they should be buying or drinking milk right now. Spread in the human population, of course, people monitor, but at this point, there's really no cause for alarm.
You talk about the risk being low and also the pretty low percentage of livestock that's been affected so far, but the U.S. is the largest producer, as we mentioned, and distributor of fresh eggs. Cal-Maine Foods shutting down production after detecting bird flu. Millions of its hens lost. So what's the impact going to be on U.S. farmers and other producers?
Well, again, you take a look at different species and what the impact is on this. You hear about the depopulation with chickens. This is a virus that is fatal in a very large percentage of birds, and so depopulation becomes an option. This has been going on for a few years now. You saw a big spike in egg prices last year with similar situations, and the industry is learning to deal with that as well. In dairy, you're seeing such a drop in the bucket. We're talking a handful of herds out of nearly 30,000 dairy farms in the United States. And in the herds that have been affected, these cows get isolated. They recover within a couple weeks. They go back into production. It's simply not the same scale of impact. We've seen no impact in terms of consumer prices or supply. We frankly wouldn't expect that. Well, again, of course, you're vigilant. You practice biosecurity measures. You try to make sure that you are monitoring your animals closely. You certainly don't want to see some of the things going on in poultry going on in other species. But we don't see that from a genome sequencing standpoint, and we're taking all the steps that you need to have right now to make sure that you have that maximum reassurance and vigilance to make sure that this does not become a larger problem.
Yeah, I think it's good you bring up these biosecurity measures, and also the fact, wasn't it about 20 years ago the U.S. dealt with this?
Well, bird flu has been around for a long time. About 20 years ago, of course, there was the first case of mad cow disease in the United States. And that's actually an interesting aspect of this story that you take a look at as well, which, of course, is the concern with trade partners. When you had that case 20 years ago, you had a lot of import restrictions that are brought along very quickly.
Right.
As the world has learned to deal more with avian influenza, as I think they get a little bit more of a grown-up perspective and a little more calm, rational perspective on some of these issues, you're not seeing trade partners getting concerned in the same way. There have been some restrictions on some interstate movement of cows in the United States. Again, abundance of caution. But I think the trade community has really dealt with this very responsibly. And another area you can take a look at too is the impact of pasteurization in terms of safety.
Right.
We read a lot about the rise of raw milk. Well, this is exhibit one as to why you would not want to be looking at widespread adoption of raw milk, because this protection against these pathogens that pasteurization gives you, this is a real reassurance for consumers in a time like this. And it's a case to really take a look at some of the progress that we have made in terms of policy and in terms of the safeguards that we have, both in terms of making sure that people don't push the panic button on trade,
Right.
but also making sure that we have a safe food supply that consumers can feel good about.
Okay, Alan, kind of two-part question here. I do think you're exactly right when you talk about people needing to have a calm reaction, and also the trade community really focusing on this. But it's not just Texas. USDA has confirmed bird flu in cattle in at least 5 states. What about the possibility of further spread? And you did mention it earlier, but talk more about the impact at the grocery store.
It's funny. I was visiting with family in Minnesota just yesterday, which is right along the flyway. And about 6 o'clock in the morning, I was awakened by the herds of Canada geese that were flying and honking overhead. And I was thinking, oh, you geese, all the problems that are being caused. When you take a look at where some of these cases are, this is flyway, right? And something's going on, and there's water and droppings, and the birds are there, and there is exposure. We're not shocked that there have been cases in other states. In some of these cases, there has been movement of cattle interstate. But again, when you're taking a look at consumers, if you're talking a handful of herds, 12, 15 herds out of 30,000, and again, we're talking about incidents that are isolated, it seems, to older cows, a small percentage of the herd, maybe 8 to 10% of a herd. They go out of production for, say, 2 weeks. Now, I don't want to minimize the impact of this on a farmer. If you're the dairy farmer in this situation, this is incredibly concerning, because you're trying to run your business, you're trying to take care of your animals the best that you can, and here's a new illness that is affecting your herd health. And that's going to hit farmers hard individually. Collectively, this is a resilient industry with a robust supply chain, with a lot of sources coming from a lot more states all across the United States. So the dairy industry is going to be fine in this. Individual dairy farmers, we have to be watching, and we have to be taking a look at that situation to making sure that the best biosecurity is followed and that those practices are communicated, that the herds that are affected, that this is taken care of, and that we get through this with the best possible outcome.
Okay, Alan, good stuff. Thank you so much. And also, tip of the hat to these farmers, because they work with a razor-thin edge for profit and loss. Okay, thanks again.